about to start. And all right, we are being recorded. All right. So good evening. Stacy, how are you doing this evening?
Good.
Well, thank you for joining us. It was an eventful, certainly very eventful from our meeting on the 3rd, where we had a discussion of the two books, Genderqueer and Lawn Boy, and the decision from Fairfax County Public Schools to reinstate those in the libraries. Joining us tonight is our producer, Sam Ettaro from NovaNow.tv. Good evening, Sam.
Hey, guys. Hey, how are you?
So, Stacy, let's just do a recap. We brought you on. You've been an activist in the community. You've been fighting against porn in schools. You've been fighting against pedophilia in schools. And we actually brought you in front of members and representatives of the LGBTQ plus community, in front of leadership of that community, specifically Fairfax Pride, where we had Mr. Robert Rigby, the president of Fairfax Pride, one of your chief opponents, as well as an activist in promoting to put these books back in the library, as well as other activists in the community, specifically Jennifer Litton Todd and Vanessa Hall, who've also been active and involved in other areas within FCPS schools and leadership positions. And they came out and they came out swinging. We asked you a bunch of tough questions and you'd answered them all. And surprisingly, were you surprised that at the end of this conversation that the LGBTQ community plus, well, let's ask you, what was your initial impressions from that meeting?
I had a good impression because one of the people that attended the meeting said that genderqueer should be removed from the library and that those materials were inappropriate for children of a very young age.
Yeah, they did agree. That was one of a transgender person that was there. And before we go into some of the comments, we're going to talk about some of the responses on social media and highlight some of the responses from those in the community after that meeting, though they agreed with you. And we'll just go do a recap of what we explored during this conversation. So for those of you who are joining us, this is the after talk. We discussed those two books in context of the FCPS library inclusion policy and the two purposes of it, which was to provide students with access to a variety of resources to support their personal interests, information needs, literary development, and personal growth, as well as the purpose to ensure that every student is able to find books to connect within their library, and though every book may not connect with every student. And we also looked at, for every book that's going to be in a library within FCPS, it has to meet one of the three goals. And this was to enrich and support the Fairfax County Public School program and studies of the Virginia Standards of Learning, to encourage and support information and recreational reading, viewing, and listening, and help students develop the skills necessary to become lifelong learners, and to meet the needs of students and faculty, taking into consideration and diverse interests, abilities, backgrounds, reading levels, maturity levels, home language, and student extracurricular interests. And in this open, uncontrolled forum in which they had absolutely unobstructed opportunity to come at Stacy was able to argue and articulate her message and successfully won over members of the LGBTQI plus community where they agreed. Genderqueer did not meet the standard for the purpose of to be within the FCPS library. It did not meet any of the goals for inclusion in the FCPS library. Now, Stacy, I understand you had to leave a little bit later, but we did discuss Lawn Boy, and there was a lot of discussion. We did post the show later, the discussion on YouTube. It is unobstructed, but it does contain mature content. But there was agreement that Lawn Boy certainly shouldn't be within middle school libraries. But they said that it was okay for high school to be included in high school libraries. Stacy, what's your opinion on that for Lawn Boy being in high school libraries? Specific Lawn Boy, not talking about genderqueer.
The author himself, Jonathan Evison, is on record as saying his book is not for children. It's an adult novel, and it is pornographic. It has explicit descriptions of sex and child sex, meaning 2 10-year-old boys that have sex as well. So no, it is not suitable for anyone under the age of 18 because it is in violation of federal law and state law in that regard.
Thank you. All right. So, Stacey, with everything that you've gone through, you shared with us that your family's been threatened. You've been under attack. were you surprised at their initial reaction to actually agree with you regarding genderqueer?
No, I wasn't surprised because I think they had not seen the images. And I think when you see the images, it's a very easy decision. The images are that graphic and that explicit. It's not a hard conclusion to reach when you see the images.
Do you think that members of this community were activated in protest without having read the images? You think they were prompted to do so from leadership within Fairfax Pride?
Yes, absolutely. And, it would be a real problem for Robert Rigby and whoever else might be running the FCPS Pride group with him, because if you're dealing with underage children in that group, if they're under the age of 18 and you're showing them the images, the American Bar Association defines that as grooming. So I think you would be in danger of breaking the law by showing these images to kids to try to get them to go and say something about it. Right? I mean, isn't that what the law says? There's a good screenshot of the American Bar Association's list of grooming activities. And one of the items on the list says to show sexually explicit material to minors under the guise of education.
That's very concerning. Stacey, I just want to remind all of our viewers that during this opportunity, all the participants, including Robert Rigby, had the opportunity to come at you with a comment or question, chose not to do so, as well as other activists. Was that surprising not to have their participation, though they were in the audience and presence and had the opportunity to do so?
Well, I think, I saw their names on the screen during the episode, so I just figured that they were going to participate and say something, but I guess they chose to remain silent and just listen to me talk.
But they did allow other members of their community to talk that hadn't read the books, but were incensed that they thought their community is under attack. And to their surprise, when you shared with them your story, your truth, that you're a child of gay parents, that this was not about an anti-LGBTQ. This was really about protecting children. And reassuringly enough, that they agreed with you that pedophilia has absolutely no place within our schools. What I found interesting, and just as a comment, was when we talked about gender queer, and we talked about whether or not, and I had an opportunity to ask you a lot of tough questions, from your critics, since they weren't jumping in. I tried to do that, and I asked them, did I leave anything out? Do you think I left anything out when I was going at you during that session?
No, I think the biggest complaint that I read from, just what you said was going on Facebook was it seemed to center a lot around that I had misgendered people that were participating. And I want it to be understood that I wasn't intending to misgender anyone, because there were no pictures on the screen. So I'm participating in the talk with my camera on, showing my face while I talk. And Robert Rigby and all of his participants chose to have their cameras off. So how am I supposed to know who I'm talking to in order to correctly gender them if I can't see them? So then you're asking me to make a judgment call based on your voice. And, I talked to somebody at one point that had obviously a male voice, a biological male voice. So I probably called that person he or him or whatever. And apparently I was mistaken. So, if you're only going to give me your voice to go on, well, then I guess you have to expect that people might make a mistake. So I'm not trying to misgender anyone or be disrespectful. So that was kind of a ridiculous criticism. And I can't help it if you don't want to participate fully. If you are too afraid to show your face, well, then, I guess you can't have too much to complain about in how the end result comes out.
Well, that's a good point that you mentioned that you showed up on this forum, you showed your face, you were on camera the entire time, and those participants from the community opted not to share their not to show their faces, giving them a perceptual advantage during that time, and those mistakes could happen. So before we go, we're going to go jump into some of these comments and the reaction. So we had the session, we had an open discussion. It was completely uncontrolled, uncensored. It was moderated, of course. But then we find out that members of the community, for both, by and large, agree with you that pedophilia certainly has no place. But as we go into it, I wanted to mention before, and just to iterate that, one, we asked questions. Did we take information out of context? They agree that we did not. And then two, we mentioned, was there a potential for possibly editing this material where it would be appropriate? And surprisingly, with genderqueer, they said no. You couldn't even edit this material for inclusion within the library. Did that surprise you that they agreed to that you could even edit it just to ban the book? The group that's freaking out about banning the books, and they said they agreed with you, Stacy. Said ban this book.
Well, no, it doesn't surprise me because, like I said, I think they had never seen the images until I showed them on the screen during the talk. And it's like, once you see the images, then you're able to accurately assess the gravity of what it is we're talking about. And then I think it's very easy to reach the correct conclusion, which is that this sort of thing has no place in the presence of children. That's why we have laws to protect children. So it's not borderline. It's not at all borderline. It's very, very X-rated.
All right, so I'm going to share with you my screen. We're going to talk about some of the contents and some of the reaction after the fact. To be honest, I was surprised and shocked during the conversation that they, for the most part, agreed with you, that they saw your point of view. Despite this personal sacrifice that you and your family have made. But let's talk about the reaction after this online, especially days later. And did you find that surprising? Oh, not only that, but I also want to talk about what you saw later on at the library and your comments on that as well. All right.
Are you referring to what happened yesterday at the public
Yes,
library?
what happened yesterday at the public library. Now I'm sharing my screen. Can you see it? You should be able to see it.
Yeah, I see that. Okay, you're wanting me to look at this here? Something?
Yeah. So let's just go back before we talk about what you saw yesterday. Let's go through the snapshot in time. Okay, so here's the Nova Now discussion on the FCPS discussion group, and you've got some members within the community that are posting some comments. Some are saying it's a 15 minutes of fame.
Hold on, stop right there. Let's look at Vanessa Hall for a moment.
Yeah. Sam,
I know she's no
fan. Your mic, Sam?
Neither Stacy nor Harry can be bothered to read the books they complain about. This is all political. Well, I actually said that in an interview I gave today to Fox News, which is one of the most annoying criticisms that I hear from the left is that I haven't read the books. Trust me, I had the books for 3 weeks, all to myself. I've read them multiple times. They were all marked up with Post-it notes. I took many pictures of many pages in Genderqueer because it is a graphic novel. So yes, I've read the books. No, it's not political. It should not have been made political by their community. The LGBTQ community is the community that made it political. Porn in schools shouldn't be political. There are plenty of gay folks who have come to me and said, we don't want this for our children. We don't want our kids exposed to pedophilia or pornography at school. And that this wing of the LGBTQ community that seems to be in favor of this is making all of us look bad. Those are the exact words I've heard many gay people say to me. So there's a problem there with their messaging. If there is a small vocal percentage of the LGBT community that has taken control of the microphone and the narrative, and they're ruining it for everyone else, that's a problem.
Well, thank you for sharing that. You saw Vanessa Hall. She also mentioned where
I'm sorry, go up for just a moment. I saw there was one by Robert Rigby. I just wanted to read that one
Yes,
too.
yes. This is the one by Mr. Rigby. Who
Okay,
is
it says
present in
I
the
was able
audience.
to listen. There were 5 striking things. No one had actually read the books. Again, I mean, I'm sorry, that's absurd. And then he goes on to complain about the misgendering. You know, if that's your biggest criticism is that I misgendered somebody that I can't even see, well, then we're not really having a whole lot of an argument, are we? I mean, that's a really minor issue. I'm sorry. It's a minor offense. It shouldn't be, a molehill shouldn't be made into a mountain. And then it was shocking how little the hetero people in the room were interested in the authentic reactions of the queer people. Well, that's not true. I sat there and listened to the reactions of the queer people in the room for an hour and talked to them. I question what Ms. Zwicker was doing there as an editor of an anti-schools outlet. Excuse me, Heather Zwicker is a reporter for the Fairfax County Times, hardly an anti-schools outlet. It's the Fairfax County Times. She was there because she has been reporting on the school board meetings. I don't even think I don't know if she said anything. I know she was just observing. So
how about the comment where they accuse you of making a homophobic or transphobic rant? And that was by
what
Michelle
was my
Weiss.
rant? I'm sorry. I don't know what I said that was transphobic or homophobic.
Nor do I. Sam, could you help?
I don't remember saying anything transphobic or homophobic.
No, not at all. And back to Rigby's comments, and I want to say, I would take his commentary as a personal attack because I've been fair to that man. I gave him an uncensored interview back in June at one of the first board meetings that I covered, and we agreed to disagree on the subject. I gave him his time on camera, longer than any soundbite that he would have got from any other media, right? And then invited him in on this forum where he chose to be completely silent. And then he turns around with these casting of these dispersions, which are simply flat out not true. So I do take issue with this, and I think it's very disingenuous and just flat out wrong. So in regards to his assessment of Stacy misgendering somebody, I will go back to say abso-positively, I agree with Stacy in that regard. The individual who was saying that they were offended by Stacy and regarding her supposed homophobic rant, and of course, anybody on that side of the aisle can take what I'm going to say and say, well, of course he's going to say this because whatever, say what you're going to say.
The
At this
video
point,
doesn't lie.
this has gotten to the point of absolute and complete and utter ridiculousness. Stacy addressed somebody who had a name up on the screen, and she wasn't maybe even sure who was talking. I concur in understanding you can watch the video that the voice did sound like a male. But even Stacy, in fairness, in today's day and age, given the cultural climate, even if they did have their picture on screen, you still could have misgendered them because who knows?
Well,
I mean, I'm not being flippant. I'm being absolutely the truth.
Well, this is kind of like an example of cancel culture, right?
Yeah, exactly.
It's gotten so extreme that the smallest little offense, even if it's an innocent mistake, is enough for the left to cry off with her head.
Victim.
And people are now in danger of losing their job and their livelihood because they clicked like on something on Facebook or Instagram that's considered politically incorrect or wrongthink. That's what's wrong with our culture right now. This cancel culture idea has got to stop, right? It's kind of like somebody needs to just go file a hurt feelings report and get over it, right? Because it was an accident.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. People make mistakes.
And I'm going to say, and I'll call it.
It wasn't intended to offend, but everybody's very offended. But this is actually, it's a funny thing. I just was talking about this the other day. That's actually in the Bible. If you're a Christian, if you read your Bible a little bit, you could probably Google it and find out what
Yeah,
the passages
don't be
are.
easily offended, right?
It
Don't
says in the
give yourself
end
to a spirit of
times-
offense. Yes.
It says in the end times, people will become much offended.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess that means we're in the end times because we're there.
I would like to point out, back to your question and back to Rigby's comment regarding what does it say there? I can't read it. That we had, the hetero people had no interest in listening to. Is that's what he's saying?
I listened very politely, for an hour.
Yeah,
so
okay,
I don't
first
know
off-
Well, the video shows that we were very respectful. In fact,
Okay.
they actually thanked us for how respectful we were.
Absolutely, but I would
And-
like to point out, Stacy, if you recall, at one point you and the one participant, Crystal, were kind of getting into it a little bit, and I actually stopped you and said, "Well, let Crystal finish, and then Stacy can respond." Right? So not only did we give the folks that had the guts, and I'm going to say it because the rest of you that sat there, kept your mouth shut, didn't say anything, then jumped on social media to attack us for trying to do a good thing here and reaching out across the aisle and trying to build bridges and making lies up. This is just ridiculous. And I'm going to say there was a point. Not only did we all listen, were we all calm and respectful, and the video does not lie, but as the moderator, we actually sometimes stopped the conversation and gave them the floor, and stressed that, because you know why? Because we were there. And I know when Harry came to me and said, "Sam, let's do this," and I was like, because some of these concerns that I'm going, what kind of can of worms are we going to open here? But then I thought, you know what, though, this is the right thing to do. Even if we disagree, we're coming from a place of really, truly trying to build bridges and find common ground. And you can't even do the right thing today in this climate. It's ridiculous. I mean, some of these other comments, it's just flat out disgusting what we're seeing here.
It's unfortunate, but this is what's happened.
It's incredibly unfortunate.
This deals with the honesty, integrity, and character of some of the leadership that we're seeing on the other side.
Stacy, I'd like to build, before you continue, Harry, I'd like to say something about what she commented on, this constant drumbeat of people that didn't read the book, people that didn't read the book, people that didn't read the book. Like, you don't have any. Listen, if I watch a 40-second piece of porn embedded into an hour-and-a-half long movie, right? And then I find out that movie is in a library and available to young people, and I would deem the movie should be pulled because it can't be edited out and it's still in that 40 seconds. I don't need to watch the rest of the movie. There's some things, Stacy, you hit it on the head. There are some things that are so over the top, egregious, and obvious that context doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the rest of the book is saying when those images speak for themselves.
It's like saying you could have a cake that is delicious and will make a nice dessert, but if somebody has put a little bit of poison in it, is it still going to kill you? The answer is yes.
Absolutely. It's mind-boggling to me. And you know why? Because I think that they know it's indefensible. They really do. So they have to resort back to flipping the script and playing that victim card in order to make, I guess.
Or just how about it? They just really didn't think that we actually recorded.
I don't know, Harry. Read some more of these comments. Go down through some of these.
You announced that you were going to record this and use it, and they still did it. They still lied.
I don't understand, because you can go down through these comments, which I've screenshotted, and we're going to post it, and you can watch the video on your own.
So this is Robert. This is the saddest part, is he's actually the leader of Fairfax Pride. So I mean, this man's supposed to be providing support for his community, and now you're just seeing like what he's willing to do, how he operates. And it's like, and if you're a parent, you actually have a legitimate concern. If your son is naturally becoming, is trying to identify, and they go to a Gay Student Alliance and they read Robert Rigby, can you trust what this man tells you about a kid? So, okay, so let's continue on. So we have Vanessa Hall. She's a very famous troll that's out there. Stacy, as you said, don't try to make a mountain out of a molehill. And there, she's saying that because you had somebody who had a male sounding voice, you misgendered it inappropriately. She's here saying that, oh wow, now this person's going to commit suicide. I don't see the leap there, and I invite everyone to view the session there to see how that possibly could have happened to make that type of leap.
I would
And
say,
by the
putting
way,
it mildly, that's
by the
hyperbole.
way, Vanessa Hall has a habit of actually doxing conservative parents who go and speak at the school.
Oh, she's done more than that. And I think what Stacey's
Really?
talking about is if you're in Fairfax County, you speak at a school board meeting, you do have to have a concern if you do have like a person like a Vanessa Hall that will actually look into your background and release your personal details. She's done it to you, Stacey. She's done it to others within Coalition for TJ. We had another parent, Glenn Miller. She actually posted his home address, and he had to be concerned with that. She's also appeared at the Fairfax school board meetings where she has gone on and said the most bigoted comments ever, calling Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology the most segregated school, and that the data supports that, completely ignoring the numerous cultures within India, within South Asia, Korea, Japan, China, all those different cultures across that entire continent. So I mean, this is the other side. So these were some of the things we talked about on this one here. We have some things on the education website. Let's see, I don't see many comments on that one. The FCPS.
It was on the FCPS discussion group.
Yeah,
because they were complaining who I am and why I'm even doing this, because I'm not from here or something.
Yeah,
I just saw you were kind of scrolling very fast, but I just saw the icon of the Mother Jones article. What were they saying about that? Because the Mother Jones article is a very lengthy piece, and it's very well researched. And that is an extremely uber left periodical. So
and they were very fair to you.
That? They were very fair. Yes, they were.
And
Stephanie Mensimer interviewed me 4 or 5 times for that piece over a 2-week long period. Can you just scroll to where that was? I just wanted to see the comments because it looks like somebody posted it. So I was just wondering what they had to say about it.
Yeah. And here I'm just seeing Vanessa Hall saying that you made a transphobic rant, and we can actually prove the video that never happened.
There was it didn't happen at all.
That was a blatant case of a false allegation right there.
Absolutely. Not even close.
Not even close. All right.
No.
So we're going to go to the Mother Jones one.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said because it like cut out. What was a false allegation?
Well, Vanessa Hall accused you of making a transphobic rant. And that you made transphobic rant that you left the Zoom.
I don't know what she's referring to.
Completely ignoring that, one, you had a connection that kind of fizzled out towards the end. And the second is that you did mention when you first started that you only had about an hour or so to be with us for the entire hour and a half session. A lie of omission. Well,
it wasn't just a lie of omission. It was a blatant lie, because if you were sitting and watching the meeting, I said to Stacy, we can barely hear you. Your video is choppy. She couldn't hear because your connection was going bad. So I said, jump out of the room and jump back in, right? So you weren't booted out. You were having problems with your connection. Whoever was that said that was in there and supposedly listening. They knew the truth. They chose to go on social media and make up a lie.
So let me look for that Mother Jones. Here we go. Oh no, that's the article in Fairfax Times. You expose.
It says it's like it's an orange icon, and it said "Mother causes a porn." There it is.
Yes, Mother Jones.
One mom launched a porn panic.
What's her comment? Yeah. Here is a
this is
enlightening
Vanessa
story
Hall trying to smear Stacy, where she goes into a Mother Jones article that's pretty fair.
It is actually really fair.
A really fair article. It says like, "Hey, this is explicit in porn." I mean, what parent wants to approve of books in their material, grooming books, where it has 10-year-olds having sex, conducting sexual activity? Let's just talk about the reasonable standard person here. So again, like this is what we're dealing with in this community, where if you have an open forum, you give them every opportunity to come at Stacy and argue and record it. And still then after recording it, all it takes is just a couple days. They just can't help themselves. They just have to go out and spread lies on social media. And
it wasn't even a few days. It was later that evening.
It was later that day. I mean, it just realized that, that people don't record things to protect themselves and show that, one, hey, these are people that are lying, that are pushing pedophilia in schools. This is really disturbing.
I don't see, she didn't get any traction. It doesn't look like there's any comments on the Mother Jones article.
Well,
So,
I think maybe people know how to read and realize that, hey, that this is and they bring up gender queer. This is indefensible. This is where, if you look at the books, you go through this book is just so out there that you can't even edit it. This is not Huckleberry Finn, where you just get rid of the N word in there and try to have that in literary in libraries. It's there's
no editing you could do to genderqueer to make it okay. It's too pervasive. It's just there's probably a dozen or more images, and it's throughout the whole book. There's no way you could make it fit.
Well, to that point, scroll up a little bit. One of the first comments where I started. Normally, I don't engage in these types of arguments, but one of the first comments was somebody said something about the flyer that I made, right, promoting the event. That it looked suspicious. The event looked suspect just based on the flyer. I was like, what's suspect about it? It's an open forum. We're inviting the community to come and have a discussion.
And you say it's uncensored, and we're inviting your comment.
Yeah, no, what it says, no one refers to books as explicit books on a flyer unless, what does that say, Harry? Unless they have
an opinion on the matter.
So my response was pretty clear. Explicit. Unless you can read and you can go to a dictionary and you can look up the word explicit in context of sexual content, and there it is. Extremely detailed and graphic sexual content. Well, that's the meaning of the word explicit. They're trying to change the English language.
No, and you can't go there. Not when you got sex toys.
It's mind-boggling to me. That is exactly what it is, as per Merriam-Webster's dictionary definition of the word explicit. I can't get my mind around it. The fact that we're even having to take time to respond to this is ridiculous.
Is where we are.
But it's illustrative of the bigger problem.
But you have activists that have political influence within Fairfax County.
Wow.
And they're pushing this type of material on our kids. They're coming after our kids. Of course,
we're seeing a lot of the politicians that are bowing to this type of social pressure, knowing full well in their heart that it's as ridiculous as we know that it is as well.
To your point, look at FCPS's decision to put these books back in the library. They had no transparent report to justify how did these books meet the goals of the FCPS inclusion in the FCPS library. They didn't. They had no transparency. They just rubber stamped it and saying, we're going to bow to political pressure. We're going to put these back in the libraries. We're going to put other children at risk. We're going to put this in an area where your children are going to go to the libraries and they're going to explore knowledge, which we all do. We want children to go into a library and explore and see new things. A parent should feel safe. They should feel comfortable. Their kid's not going to run across something that's going to poison their mind. They should not be reading a book. I mean, look at what's this? Justine Maxwell. We saw with the Jerry the trial's coming up right now.
The trial, yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to say that guy. Now I'm sounding like Biden, just like forgetting. Like Justine Maxwell, and who was the
Jeffrey Epstein?
Jeffrey Epstein, exactly. Jeffrey Epstein, where she was there grooming him. Now you're having these books that are grooming 10-year-olds. We're like, well, hey, this might happen to you. Thinking that this might be an okay thing, and just keep it a secret between you and that other person, and don't tell your parents. Because that's what these books are actually pushing to these kids. It's pushing physical and sexual boundaries. It's grooming. You want to put this in a book where he sees these kids can actually read this material. Now, thankfully, there are members of integrity in the LGBTQ plus IA community that when they read these books, and I get it, you're going to rally. When you have a leader in your community saying, hey, they're coming after us. I get it. Ride or die. You're going to be there. You're going to be protesting the books. You're going to say, we're not going to be targeted. But then when you actually sit back in a forum, they look at these books, you're like, I'm not for this. This is grooming. This book should be completely banned. You guys are right. Now they say, hey, are you guys going to go after some of the hetero stuff that shouldn't be in there? I mean, the book, Stephen King's books probably shouldn't be in the library. I mean, they're very, very graphic. I mean, particularly with it. And Stacy, I think you said you're gonna talk about that next, right? That's up and coming. That's next on your hit list. But let's just come to agreement. Like, you should be having these explicit books, this explicit material in the school library. Actually, Stacy, you did mention you were going to go after the other stuff too. And the porn in libraries, go after all of it. So let's talk about this. Any other comments that we have here?
Oh, there's quite a few.
Oh, there's quite a few. Oh, let's go after Jennifer Litton Todd, who actually made a
Oh,
comment.
on Twitter. That was.
Oh,
I
my
didn't even bother to
Oh,
open that
let's
up.
just we got to go after the best of the best.
It was on the Nova Now Twitter feed when I
Oh,
announced
the letter for Litton Todd, where she said that not everyone had an opportunity to speak. Was that a truthful statement?
What a lie! What an absolute lie! I mean, it's
Absolute
mind-boggling.
lie. I mean,
And I mean, we said over and over, if anybody was like you have the floor, put it in the chat. Just look, watch the freaking video, and you're going to see how open everybody was, and the room was open. Nobody was censored. Nobody was shut down. No, everybody was welcome. All viewpoints were welcome. And what I note here, Harry, here's what's amazing. It's the very people who chose to not speak up. It's the very people who chose to not even put anything in the chat. It's the very people who chose to not say a word, not only to confront Stacy or come at Stacy, as you've been saying, but just to simply have their voice be heard. It's those very people who chose to stay silent who are now accusing us of censoring the broader group. How sick is that?
this is. I mean,
that's not. There's something not right there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I'm looking at this tweet that Jennifer Litton posted.
Read it. Go ahead and read it.
It says, I watched this and was very disappointed for many reasons. One, all views weren't in fact heard because it was clear nobody in the discussion had read either book. I think it's intellectually dishonest to discuss books nobody in the panel nor anyone calling it have actually read. We were actually pointing out, Jennifer, that your audience, your tribe that you brought, they didn't read the books either. We didn't read them. Well, first of all,
but when Stacy showed them what we were talking about, they went, whoa.
Exactly. Stacy read the books. We actually read the books. We're pointing out, and we defended it. Did we take this out of context? And when Stacy pointed out, they're like, whoa, we're not for that. I mean, they really backed off. Now you're backpedaling.
Yeah.
And trying to backpedal on this one. Saying dishonest.
Yeah.
Trivializing words as serious as groom in reference to pedophilia. So I guess curious, Jennifer, do you think that when you have a book where you talk about where, hey, a 10-year-old, hey, what if I told you if I touched another dude's dick? What if I told you I sucked it and I'm 10 years old and it's this guy and guess what? It wasn't a bad experience. That's not grooming a 10-year-old to be open to that experience, to keep a secret from a parent. I think that's the definition of grooming, Jennifer. What planet are you on? And then we're talking about we're personally trashing you. Well, we weren't then, but I think we are now since you are very active in the community and you're putting children at risk.
I don't see what we're doing here as trashing anybody. We're making you know what we're doing? We're making simple observation using our cognitive abilities and just based on common sense and the and based on reality, because what she's saying didn't happen.
Oh,
it's crazy.
I got another one here. Here we got somebody attacking me. We got Sujatha Hampton. She was the person who actually used to be the chairman of the education board for the Fairfax NAACP chapter. That's the majority white NAACP, the one that actually doesn't do anything for black people.
Invite her to the upcoming show.
I think I will because she's used that as a platform to actually advance white interest in our community.
That'll be great.
TJ admissions. I hope she'll really show up. She's talking about that, how I'm not honest, where you have a person here clearly light-skinned North Indian, but when you see her promote herself in NAACP capacity, she'll darken her skin. She'll have an Obama thing mural in the background, a Buffalo Soldier in the foreground. Actually tries to present herself as African American. She really is a Rachel Dolezal. You got to see this person in action.
What's the comment?
Make this stuff. She just tries to say that I'm a dishonest person. I'm not dishonest. In fact, I'm willing to do what Stacy just did. I'm willing to actually sit up there and let somebody come at me. You would have talked to me what's going on in the black community. I challenge all comers. Bring it. They're not gonna do it. But Sam, I don't think they're gonna come in. But this is just another person. We talk about the trolls. These are people actually coming into the community. These are people that actually go so far as actually to harass people within the community. We talked about with what Vanessa Hall has done. Do we have anything? This is just her Twitter feed. I mean, they're all on mine. They're all focused about what I do for Harry J for Justice. Let's see. We talked about the FCPS discussion. Robert Rigby had the opportunity.
I do have a question for Stacy while you're looking through that, Harry, because you and I have talked about this, and I got to get going. First off, Stacy, thank you for doing this. Secondarily,
You're welcome.
Your thoughts. I just saw the article. I didn't know what Harry was talking about. He's like something about something about gnomes holding
Yes.
up
The
gender
public
queer next to the library.
Yes, let's talk.
I
let's
read that
talk about
article
that.
before I jumped on here, and I could, and what, and this is what, here's what blows my mind. Okay, let me go back to Crystal in our room. Crystal challenged Stacy on your stances in general, worldview, and on the books. And regardless of what you said, Crystal said, and I'm paraphrasing, you can watch the video, Stacy can say all she wants, that she's not homophobic or transphobic, whatever it was that she said. I am still taking offense, and I think deep down that she is. So my feelings are telling me, this is what was said, my feelings are telling me that she is, and that her being defensive when I called her out is proving that I'm right. You remember that conversation? Remember that, right? Something along those lines. Go watch it on your own. But here's my thoughts. Here's the librarian coming out now and saying it was not our intention to offend anybody. And I'm sitting there thinking, you know full well you're placing these highly controversial books, which I would say, I would venture a guess, the majority of those that are vehemently opposed to these books are probably of a Christian persuasion, I would say.
Or a Muslim persuasion.
Okay, either or,
it doesn't
fine.
matter.
Or an Orthodox Jewish persuasion.
You're going to put the books that are in the spotlight, right during the holy month, next to one of the big holy books. How could you not think that this would drum up controversy? How could your intent not to be controversial?
Well, the statement is completely dishonest. Okay, it's
well,
not
that's my point.
genuine.
They knew
It's
exactly what they were doing.
They knew exactly what they were doing.
Exactly.
I spoke with the branch manager of the library system. Her name is Nancy Ryan. I asked her specifically, how do these displays get put together? Who makes these decisions? And she said, they are at the librarian's discretion, and there are two ways that it happens. So either a group can approach them and ask permission to put up a display, in which case then the librarian looks at what their idea is and what the content is, and then she either approves or not. And then the second way that it happens is that the staff members come up with an idea, and the librarian collaborates with them, and they put up a display. And so Nancy Ryan said that it was the second was how this display came about. Okay. It did not come from an outside group. It was a staffer on the library staff who came up with this idea, and that the librarian, Mary Prisbrey, coordinated and collaborated, and they made this together. So the librarian did this with full knowledge and full approval. And nowhere along the way did they stop and think it through and go, maybe this is a bad idea during Advent to put the Bible next to the pedophilic, pornographic books of the moment of controversy, and dress these characters up in LGBTQ rainbow flag paraphernalia.
Exactly. I mean, this is a complete slap in the face. I mean, this is
all it was. Right.
It's a very deliberate slap in the face, and also the timing. Okay. I spoke at the school board meeting on Thursday night of December 2nd about the legality of this type of material. And this display was put up on Saturday. They had to pull it down by noon yesterday. It was pulled down at noon yesterday because Nancy Ryan told me they had received many complaints. And I asked her, what was the complaint? And she said the complaint was that the books were inappropriate, and that it was also inappropriate to have the two books, Genderqueer and Lawn Boy, placed next to the Holy Bible. So, and then I asked her who was making the complaints, and she said library patrons. So they must have taken quite a lot of phone calls to pull it down after only 2 days.
You know, completely inappropriate, considering that even though when you read up visual with Genderqueer, a book that's clearly promoting pedophilia, and Lawn Boy, even by the author, where he admits it should be for adults, and certainly in no place. Why did it take them so long to do this? This was at Which library was this at?
This is Dolly Madison Public Library. It's in McLean.
In McLean.
There you go.
And I'm having a
Yeah.
protest on Saturday at noon to push back on what they did, because this is an egregious mistake, and it's an intentional mistake, and it's an insult to all of the taxpayers in Fairfax County, and it's an insult to the Christians in Fairfax County. And I think that, I did ask Nancy Ryan if librarian Mary Prisby had considered putting the Quran on the display, or if she had considered putting the Talmud on the display. And she said that she did not know the answer to that. But
well, we all know the answer to that. If it was the Quran, that would have been that would have been I think we know
it
the
might have
reaction
been
that would
on.
have.
It's on like Donkey Kong if the Quran had been put on the display.
Yeah, I think
right.
I think so. Yeah, it would have been. Yeah. I don't think this would have lasted 2 days. I mean, I would have given that 2 hours once I got confirmed that they did that. Absolutely. I mean, this protest, it's 2 o'clock. It's at 12 o'clock. Where is the protest? How can other parents?
At the library.
It's at the library, at this specific library in McLean, at Dolly Madison Library in McLean.
Yep. 12 o'clock Saturday.
12 o'clock this Saturday, December 11th. And we have to hold Fairfax County Public Schools accountable, as well as the library system accountable. We cannot have pedophilia in the books. Even on the other side, they agree it's pedophilia. They're just doubling down.
Guys, I really do need to go.
Okay, Sam, thank you for joining us.
But listen, the both of you, thank you for what you're doing, and I appreciate you using our new platform here. And I think the work that we're doing, Harry, it's illustrative. It's important because it shows the power of citizen media. This is important that we have this platform, and what we're doing in this collaborative effort is it's raising some eyebrows, and people are listening, and I appreciate the opportunity to use this platform to get this out here. God bless you guys.
Actually, I first been right. Thank you, Sam.
Absolutely. That's what it's all about. Send me the recording and I'll get it up tomorrow night.
Yep. Stopping the recording right now.